If the ability to throw as many polygons at Clarisse as you possibly can and see your viewport as the final render seamlessly without having to update anything or wait for it to load everything inside of your renderer hasn't sold you on Clarisse yet, you might want to take a look at the newly released Clarisse 5.0. Just released today, and we're going to be taking a look at these features. So some of the new features that are coming into Clarisse 5 are extremely exciting, and one of them you're seeing right here in your scene. Actually, a couple of them you're actually seeing right here in front of you. Number one, this is a completely emissive texture. There are 0 lights in this scene. If I had this organized whatsoever, you could see that there's no lights enabled besides this light right here. And actually, if I disable this will probably start rendering again. And you can see just how fast this render is. Now I do have, if I show my path tracer here, I do have 64 samples, so not too bad, but I do have a little bit of samples cranked up. So if I delete this light, you see this starts to render again, and this is how fast it renders inside of Clarisse. Extremely quick for how the emissive lighting looks. Normally when you have emissive textures, they're absolutely enormously costly to render, or you have to fake them. There's no good way about going about using emissive textures in your scenes, which is extremely frustrating, but Clarisse has done it once again and completely just thrown that out of the water and made this possible inside of Clarisse 5, and it's very, very quick and looks absolutely phenomenal. So let's take a look at these shaders. So as I find our shaders, there we are. So this is actually using the new material as well. So the Autodesk standard surface material. So this is what it looks like if you haven't seen it yet. And let's actually just make this a little bit bigger. Not that one. Make this a little bit bigger. So this is what it looks like if you haven't seen it inside of Clarisse. It's got a bunch of different options here. I'm not going to go really too much in depth here because a lot of it's pretty self-explanatory. You can basically just use it like you would any other texture, material. Plug your textures in to the corresponding inputs, and you're pretty much off to the races. So this is just a simple texture that I've set up here. So just a noise going through a triplanar and some color correction blended with a color to give us these materials. So nothing fancy here, but that's not what this is all about. So there are a couple of different ways that you can go about setting up these samples for your emissive textures. So like I said, the path tracer inside of the sampling, you can see you have your emissive sample count. This is what's going to drive your sampling for your materials, basically your lights. This is going to be the overall sampling. So if I set this to 0, it's going to disable it, and now the material sample count will drive it. So that'll clean up, and obviously 64 samples there doesn't look nearly as good as when I had 64 samples in our emissive sample count. Let's see if you wait just a second again. Looks a lot cleaner in this view compared to the 64 material sample. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to come to your objects, and then in the rendering section, which this is the new attribute editor, by the way, things are broken down a little bit nicer. The one thing that does kind of throw me off here, I figured if you were to click on any of these, it would just solo that one, but it seems that it's disabling all of them. So if you just want the rendering, I don't know if there's a way to, I don't know if one of these buttons changes that or not, but that would be how you do it, is you just select each individual one that you want. But anyways, to get the emission controls per object, you're going to come down to this rendering emission thing, and if you uncheck this, it's going to disable your emission importance sampling. So EIS is what they're calling it. So once I check that, it's going to render way faster. And then you have some different modes here. So the guy that explains it in the video that's on their YouTube channel, does a pretty good job of explaining this. I'm not going to try to go into it. Basically, your color, if you have a color map kind of driving stuff, you're going to want to use this setting. If you have something that's like a texture driving the weight, you're going to want to use this setting. If you're using kind of both of these, you're going to use this both. It's a very rough understanding of it. So I would definitely go and watch the video on the importance sampling for the emission on their YouTube channel so that you can get a better understanding of that. But super exciting stuff here. You can also set the sample count per object here. All of these objects have that setting in them. So you can see they're all pretty much set to the same thing. So it's super cool there. Now there is some other stuff inside of Clarisse that is new. Let's go ahead and jump back over to our 3D view. And we're not looking through anything right now. So the one thing, I don't know if this is a bug, but you used to be able to drag and drop, say, your camera onto your eye view, which, okay, it is now working. Just a second ago, that was not working. But check this out. If I hit Shift L, or no, if I hit, sorry, just L, it's going to jump out of my camera. So as I zoom in here, if I hit Shift L now, it's going to jump into my camera. I can press L, and then it'll jump back out of it. And also, if I am rotating around here, I press Tab, it's going to snap me to an orthographic view. Again, press Tab again, it'll snap me out of that, and I can just kind of rotate around. It's going to snap you to whatever the closest orthographic view is, which is super cool. And if you're confused at all about that, you can come up to the eye icon, and you can see the shortcuts here. So, like I said, closest ortho view, press Tab. You also have your individual hotkeys to switch between them. And then your camera, look through your previous camera is going to be Shift L. And then look through selected is going to be L. So if you don't have any camera selected, it's going to, whoops, if I hit Shift L here. If you don't have any camera selected, it's going to just pop you out of your camera, which is pretty sweet. So the other thing that is kind of exciting is another new light type. And so let's go ahead and jump into this import thing. I just brought in a tree. We're going to see if this works. I don't know if this is going to work at all, but it might crash our program. So let's take a look and see if we can make this tree a light. Let's add in a polygrid first, and we'll come down, make this a lot bigger. So we'll just do, I guess I don't need it 1,000 by 1,000. Oh yeah, I probably do. Let's set that to 1,000 because this tree is pretty big. So another thing that you kind of notice here, no longer have to kind of fight between your workspace here, I don't know if they automatically snap over. Yes, so as you go bring these down, they no longer hide themselves. These little icons here, they pop down to another line, which is a very welcome addition for me, as I normally work on a ultra wide monitor, which I definitely recommend getting one if you don't have one, if you're doing any sort of creative work. But I can't record in that super wide screen view, so I split my screen, and it kind of hid these things before in Clarisse 4. So happy to see that has been changed. But let's go ahead and try and make this tree, which has 2.4 million polygons, a light, and let's see what happens. So you just got to select your object, and you can come up to your lighting tab and click this geometry light. And it doesn't seem like it worked. That's unfortunate. Yeah, we're under progressive rendering. Don't know if there's anything special you have to do. Let's see. Oh, maybe it did work. Oh, it did work. Oh, that is awesome. That is sick. Okay, let's just go ahead and drag this import into our scene here, and boom. So we scroll out here. Holy crap. The tree definitely works as a geometry light, which is super sick. That's 2.5 million polygons that just works as a geometry light, which is pretty crazy. I was not expecting that to actually work. So apparently you can actually scatter these around, and they work just perfectly as well. So I'm not going to try that with this tree, or should I? I guess I will. Let's give it a shot. Let's do a point cloud. Let's make this a little bit smaller too. I wonder if I need to do anything other than change this scale. I have not actually gotten used to everything yet. So let's see where our scale settings reside. There we go, kinematics, that's where it's gonna be. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Let's set this to 0.2. Oh, and it just works. Sweet. Okay, so we got a point cloud in here. Let's parent that to our object. So let's go to polygrid, and let's crank up some points. Let's go like 20. Let's go into our 3D view here. And let's make this polygrid a lot smaller actually, because we actually have another polygrid in there. So let's set this to maybe 50 by 50. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. Let's go 100 by 100. And we got some points scattered on there. Let's make a scatter. Let's toss in our point cloud and toss in our tree. Okay, so that doesn't work. I guess we probably need to, wait a minute. I bet you, can we select our scatter? No. What went? Oh yeah, so let's go back. That just did the wrong thing. Let's bring our tree back in here. Wonder if we select our scatter now and hit the light, what happens? Nothing? Okay. Apparently you can scatter these around with lights, or with the scatters, but I don't know how you go about doing that yet. I literally just downloaded this and started playing around with it, so it's pretty sweet though, that you can make these emissive textures and the geometry lights. That is absolutely awesome. If you haven't taken a look at their website here, if I can pop this in, see all that is new inside of Clarisse, I would definitely take a look at this website. It's just the what's new section of 0.5. Watch the keynote as well. They go over a lot of different things. So we got, like I said, the orthographic views, a new graph editor, some camera overlays, which will be like your rule of thirds, your golden spiral, things like that you can set up so you can see directly in your render. USD exporter, which is absolutely awesome for big studios. It's definitely needed. This is pretty interesting actually. Exporting a lot of geometry into Houdini. I can't imagine that that's going to work in the billions of polygons or trillions of polygons if you get all the way up that high. But pretty dense scene here that they exported through USD into Houdini, and it works perfectly because Houdini is also awesome. And USD variants and global variables, so you can set up just global variables, change like to night, different lighting setups, stuff like that. That's super awesome. Render improvements, which is always welcome. Adaptive anti-aliasing. This is pretty in-depth. Definitely watch this video. Some interesting stuff in there. Then we got the denoiser rendering. So this is your subsurface scattering stuff going on in here, I believe. That's what it looks like from the keynote. They got a new subsurface scatterer, which is pretty sick. This is more on the emission importance sampling. Definitely take a look at that. Like I said, it goes over the EIS settings and explains that a lot better than I did. Geometry lights, which we took a look at, some light improvements for your things like the IES lights, which are going to be helpful for certain things like your architectural rendering, stuff like that. If you use Clarisse for that, that's where you're going to be using IES lights. The Autodesk standard surface, which we took a look at as well. That's also a new welcome change, a new option to use a different material. Like I said, the new subsurface scattering engine with the random walk, the improved random walk subsurface scattering. Hair and fur, which is awesome. Definitely some cool stuff going on here. Transmission improvements. This is actually super sick. Both of these videos I actually haven't watched both of these, but looks like based off of this expression right here and what I watched from the keynote, they go over some interesting stuff that you can do with this. Definitely some cool things that you can do in post, and definitely welcome there as well. So definitely take a look at those two videos. The attribute editor, which we talked about. Image history, which we didn't talk about, but you can take snapshots, and that's pretty cool. Evaluation controls, we can actually pause our viewport somehow. I don't really worry about that too much. You can do it through the settings down here. You can force it to be paused or force it to automatically render when you launch. So these two settings are when you open a project, so it won't take so long to open or won't start doing things immediately. And then you can play all widgets, pause all widgets, so you can pause the rendering and stuff through that. You can also do it through one of these settings up here. I'm not going to mess with that because I don't really find that too useful. The global output resolution setting, so this is going to be awesome. I think you can set this on a project level, directly application. So application level, that'll be nice to set that up so you don't have to redefine your output resolution. And then the unified architecture, which basically makes Clarisse Builder and Clarisse kind of all run off the same thing, and the new PLE, which allows you to use the Personal Learning Edition to learn not only Clarisse iFX, so the program that we're using here, but the Clarisse Builder as well, which you're seeing a little snapshot of there, which is pretty cool stuff if you're looking to get into a studio style pipeline. You can take a look and learn through as much as you want with the PLE edition. And then the VFX platform update, which is Python 3.7. So if you're into scripting, you're going to have to update all of your Python scripts that you use inside of Clarisse to Python 3 from Python 2, which is pretty cool. I'm guessing that brings in some speed improvements. I don't mess around with scripting that much, but it's definitely something I might get into in the future. And having the more up-to-date tool set is definitely a welcome change, especially for big studios, I'm sure. So that kind of rounds out the basics of what's going on with the new Clarisse 5.0. Pretty awesome stuff that we got going on here. I'm probably most excited about our, let's just delete that. I'm probably most excited about the emission sampling here. This is definitely something that's a welcome change in my eyes. The emission has always been an issue with everything that I've always done. If you remember the Avatar scene from Avatar, the movie, way back in, what was that, 2010 now, the forest scene, or if you've seen How to Train Your Dragon, like 3 or whatever it is, they have a really cool cave scene where it's all lit by emissive textures, which, or what looks like emissive textures. If you've seen that, there's definitely some cool stuff going on there, but this would make it 1,000 times easier if they had the ability to just create the emissive textures and use those. They don't have to fake it with any sort of lights, which I'm sure that they did, because the render times would have just been stupidly long if they were trying to do it the regular way. But anyways, this kind of interrupted my plans for my uploads. You guys are going to see this, and then you're going to see some actual Clarisse 4 content in the next coming videos, because I wasn't expecting to have Clarisse 5 yet. The one big thing that I forgot to mention at the start, this did not include, as far as I'm aware, did not include the new Angie renderer. Don't believe that that is in here yet. I think they're still working on that. There are some updates to R2C, it sounded like, from the keynote as well, which allows you to use other renderers inside of Clarisse. So like your Redshift and stuff, there are working demos of that, but I couldn't get that working. I gave it a shot and ran into some issues. So definitely welcome to see Angie when that comes, but unfortunately I don't believe it's here yet. So we'll have to hold off a little bit longer. It's supposed to be coming in 2021, so they got about 7 months before we have to get to yelling at them if they don't get it out. So hopefully that comes out before too long. Now that Clarisse 5 is out, they can kind of focus on that, I'm sure, before they have to really focus on the next major production release of Clarisse. So hopefully we get that before too long. But anyways, I do have a bunch of other Clarisse videos coming, so keep an eye out for those. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those. I do also have a bunch of Houdini and Cinema 4D and Redshift content on my channel, so take a look at those if you're interested in those. Definitely going to be bridging the gap between Houdini and Clarisse, and some coming videos plan to dive into that a little bit and do some cool things with that if I can get it all figured out. So thank you guys for watching. Definitely excited about Clarisse 5.0. Hopefully you guys are too. But if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about Clarisse 5, whether you're excited about it, what you're most excited about from the new release. And I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good day.